Have you ever wondered why, even in a world obsessed with freedom, most of us still feel trapped? We say we want confidence, peace of mind, a life on our own terms, but we spend our days editing ourselves for approval. We second-guess our thoughts before we speak. We wear clothes to impress people we don't even like. We reshape our lives to fit into opinions that change by the hour. It's strange, isn't it? We love ourselves more than anyone. Yet somehow we care more about what strangers think than what we truly feel. That idea isn't new. Marcus Aurelius wrote it nearly 2,000 years ago, and the irony is, nothing has changed. We're still walking around in invisible chains pretending we're free while tiptoeing through life, terrified of being judged. Every word filtered, every move calculated. And for what? But what if there's another way? What if you could walk through this noisy, chaotic world without being ruled by it? The Stoics weren't immune to these struggles, far from it. They just built something most of us forgot was possible, a mindset of inner strength that doesn't flinch no matter what's happening outside. They didn't escape the world. They learned how to move through it, untouched, unshaken. That's exactly what this video is about. If you've ever found yourself shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone, if fear of judgment has held you back from living fully, this is your permission slip to stop performing, to stop apologizing for who you are, and to start walking your own path with quiet confidence and unapologetic clarity. Let's dive in. Here are 12 Stoic strategies that will help you stop caring about what doesn't matter and start focusing on what truly does. 1. Society has trained us to abandon our inner freedom. Take a look around. We live in a world where everyone's trying to be free, but few of us actually are. We talk a big game about self-love, confidence, and peace of mind, but the moment we step out the door, something shifts. We check the mirror twice, filter our words, and ask ourselves, will they like this, even before we say a thing? It's almost like we're living on stage, stuck in a never-ending performance, adjusting our tone, our look, even our opinions, just to avoid disapproval. We become experts at shape-shifting, not for fun or creativity, but out of fear. Fear of not fitting in, fear of being misunderstood, fear of standing out for the wrong reasons. Think about it. How many times have you held back a thought because it might sound strange? Or worn something you didn't even like just to blend in? This isn't freedom, it's quiet submission. And the saddest part is, most of us don't even notice we're doing it. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, saw through this illusion nearly 2,000 years ago. He wrote, "We love ourselves more than other people, yet we care more about their opinions than our own." Let that sink in. We know ourselves better than anyone else ever will. We live in our own skin, carry our own memories, fight our own battles, and yet somehow the passing judgments of others weigh heavier than the truth we carry inside. Why? Why do we give so much power to people who barely know us? Maybe it's because we've been trained to believe that acceptance means survival, that approval equals value, and so we shrink, we edit, we perform. But here's the reality. The Stoics remind us of living for the crowd may earn you applause, but it will cost you your peace. So what happens if we stop performing? What if instead of constantly adjusting ourselves to fit others, we started listening to our own values, the ones buried under all that noise? That's where the Stoic journey begins, not with rebellion, but with self-honesty. And in the next strategy, we'll take that idea even deeper, questioning the rules we've been blindly following and learning how to rewrite them for ourselves. 2. Wake up, stop following the herd without thinking. Most of us are following rules we didn't write and never questioned. We chase standards we inherited without asking where they came from. We follow traditions simply because, well, that's how it's always been done. But have you ever stopped to wonder who decided this? And more importantly, why am I still following it? See, society hands down expectations like hand-me-down clothes. They may not fit, you may not match your personality, your dreams, or your values, but you wear them anyway because not wearing them might make you stand out. And standing out for many feels more terrifying than being stuck. But here's the truth the Stoics love to wrestle with: just because something is normal doesn't mean it's right or right for you. Real freedom begins the moment you stop running on autopilot. It starts when you become curious enough to challenge the unwritten rules you've been living by your whole life. Few people embodied this fearless mindset better than Diogenes the Cynic. He didn't sit in fancy lecture halls or dress like a respectable philosopher. No, Diogenes lived in a literal barrel. He walked backward into crowds. He begged from statues. And no, he wasn't trying to be a clown. He was training his mind to stop craving approval. He was reminding himself and the world that dignity doesn't come from conforming. It comes from standing firm in who you are, no matter how strange it looks from the outside. To most people, Diogenes looked like a madman. But to the Stoics, he was a symbol of radical self-awareness, someone who refused to be shaped by the expectations of others. He challenged every unspoken rule that told him how to act, what to wear, who to be. Not out of rebellion for rebellion's sake, but to stay awake, to stay fully alive. You don't have to live in a barrel to practice that kind of freedom. But you can start small. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who told me I had to? If the answer is just tradition or habit, maybe it's time to pause. Maybe it's time to rewrite the script. And in the next strategy, we'll take that first bold step, learning how to face discomfort on purpose, and why that's one of the fastest ways to build real inner strength. 3. Choose discomfort on purpose and watch what happens. Most of us spend our lives dodging discomfort like it's a disease. We avoid awkward moments, shy away from judgment, and stay quiet when we have something to say, all to keep the peace, or, more truthfully, to protect ourselves from being seen in the wrong way. But here's the hard truth the Stoics understood. If you're afraid to be judged, you'll always be controlled by the crowd. That's why they trained for it. Yes, trained. Just like building muscle, inner strength doesn't appear overnight. You forge it through repetition, through choosing the small discomforts now, so the big storms don't shake you later. Take Cato, for example, a Roman senator respected and wealthy. But instead of dressing in the polished white togas like everyone else, he showed up in rough, dark clothes. No tunic, no shoes. Was he poor? Not at all. He was making a choice, a deliberate one. Cato wanted to feel the stares. He wanted to hear the whispers. He knew that if he could willingly face small moments of social discomfort, if he could walk through a room and feel the burn of being misunderstood, then no insult, no gossip, no judgment could break him when it really mattered. That wasn't ego. That was training. And that's something we can all apply. You don't need to march barefoot through the streets of Rome. But what if you wore that outfit you love, even if it's not trending? What if you said what you really think in the meeting, not what people expect? Each time you face discomfort on purpose, you're telling your nervous system, hey, I survived that. I'm stronger than I thought. It's not about rebellion, it's about resilience. Because strength isn't built in comfort zones, it's built just beyond them. And speaking of strength, in the next strategy, we'll tackle one of the biggest illusions that keeps us small, the belief that everyone is watching, judging, and remembering our every move. Spoiler alert, they're not. But when you understand why, it'll change everything. 4. Separate your reputation from your real worth. Let's get something straight. Being admired doesn't make you valuable, and being ignored doesn't make you worthless. But most of us live like the opposite is true. We chase likes, compliments, validation, constantly measuring our self-worth against applause. And the danger is, it works. For a little while, that dopamine hit, that nod of approval, that moment when you feel seen. But what happens when the clapping stops? Carl Jung put it bluntly. Shame is a soul-eating emotion. And he was right. When your identity depends on how others see you, then every time someone disapproves, you start to shrink. You stay silent when you want to speak. You dim your light just to avoid being called too much. And without even realizing it, you begin living a version of yourself edited for other people's comfort. That's why the Stoics warned us, do not tie your inner value to outer validation. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, learned this lesson the hard way and in public. One day while walking through a crowded marketplace with a pot of lentil soup, yes, lentil soup, his teacher suddenly knocked the pot from his hands. Soup splashed everywhere. People stared, laughed. Zeno froze in embarrassment, and his teacher simply smiled and said, "See, nobody cares. It sounds harsh, but it was a powerful lesson. The moment you realize the world isn't as focused on your flaws as you think, is the moment you stop hiding." That's the freedom Stoicism offers, not freedom from judgment, but freedom despite it. You are not your reputation. You are not someone else's opinion of your worst moment. You are who you are when no one's watching and when no one's clapping. So what if instead of fearing shame, you started practicing resilience in the face of it? What if you could be seen awkward, messy, honest, and stay grounded in your own self-respect? In the next part, we'll explore exactly why most of us feel like we're being watched all the time, and how breaking that illusion is one of the fastest ways to reclaim your confidence. 5. People aren't watching you as closely as you think. Ever had that sinking feeling that everyone noticed the stain on your shirt, or that awkward thing you said in a meeting? Maybe your voice cracked or you tripped on the sidewalk and thought, well, that's it. Everyone saw. Everyone remembers. But here's the truth. They don't. Most people are far too busy worrying about themselves to be focused on you. They're not watching your every move, they're rehearsing their next line. They're not replaying your missteps. They're trying to forget their own. But still the illusion sticks. We live like we're under a spotlight, like every small imperfection is being recorded, judged, and stored forever in someone else's memory bank. That belief, it's exhausting. It makes you overthink every word, every choice, every outfit, and slowly, without even realizing it, you stop living. You start performing. But the Stoics saw through this illusion. They didn't buy into the idea that everyone's watching because they knew the truth. You are not the center of everyone's universe. And that's not an insult, it's a gift. Because once you realize that nobody is really paying that much attention, you're free. Free to be awkward, free to be real, free to speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Zeno, remember him. After spilling that soup all over himself in public, he learned something that stayed with him forever. Most of the embarrassment we feel comes from inside us, not from outside. The crowd laughs, sure, but then they move on, and when they do, you're still standing. So why keep pretending? Why live a life edited for people who probably won't even remember the scene? Here's the shift. Start living like nobody's watching, because most of the time they aren't. And when they are, let them. In the next section, we'll talk about what happens when you stop needing to be liked and how that unlocks a level of authenticity and self-trust that no crowd can give or take away. 6. Your worth doesn't belong to the crowd. Here's something most people never say out loud. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you are. Not your family's, not your followers, not even society's. Because true value, the kind that can't be faked or stolen, doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment, from knowing who you are and standing in it even when the world doesn't get it. The Stoics understood this on a soul-deep level. They knew that when you rely on the crowd to validate your worth, you give up control of the very thing that makes you, you. Agrippinus, a Roman Stoic during the brutal reign of Nero, once said, "I am the red thread in a white tunic." He didn't whisper it. He didn't say it with shame. He embraced it. He knew he stood out, and he saw that as strength, not a flaw. While others bowed to power, molded themselves to fit in, and chased safety and sameness, Agrippinus chose to remain himself, not out of pride, but out of principle. Because when you know your values, when you know your truth, conformity stops being attractive. And when you lose the need to blend in, you gain the freedom to actually show up. Carl Jung said it best. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But let's not sugarcoat it, that privilege comes with a price. Sometimes it means being misunderstood. Sometimes it means walking alone. Sometimes it means standing out in ways that make others uncomfortable. But if the choice is between being liked for who you're not or respected for who you truly are, the Stoics would always choose the latter. You are not a brand. You are not a trending version of yourself. You are a living, evolving human being, and that's more powerful than any applause the crowd could offer. So in a world begging you to blend in, dare to stand apart. And next we'll talk about what to do when the people you love most, the ones closest to you, don't understand that journey, and how to keep going anyway. 7. The courage to disappoint the people you love. Sometimes the hardest expectations to break are the ones that come wrapped in love. They come from your parents, your teachers, your mentors, the people who raised you, supported you, maybe even sacrificed for you. And that's what makes it so difficult, because when their vision for your life doesn't match your own choosing, your path can feel like betrayal. But take Florence Nightingale. She was born into wealth, status, and privilege, a life already mapped out for her. She was expected to host tea parties very well and never work a day in her life. But something in her spirit said otherwise. She felt called to serve, to heal, to be in the trenches, not the drawing rooms. At the time, nursing was considered disgraceful for a woman of her class, but she did it anyway. Not because it was popular, not because it was praised, but because it was true. That's the kind of quiet rebellion the Stoics respected, the kind that doesn't come from rage or resistance, but from alignment with your inner voice. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, you must be willing to be misunderstood." And sometimes the people who misunderstand you most are the ones who care about you most. They love you, but they don't see what's burning inside you. They see your potential, but only through the lens of their own experience. That's not evil, it's just limited. But here's the line you'll eventually have to draw. Are you going to live the life they expect or the one you're meant to create? And no, it won't be easy. It might hurt, it might cause distance, but denying your own path just to keep others comfortable, that hurts too quietly, slowly, and deeply. The Stoics knew this pain well, but they also knew the freedom that comes from choosing truth over tradition, from choosing purpose over people-pleasing. And in the next strategy, we'll dig even deeper into the invisible chains we carry, not just from others' expectations, but from the dreams we inherited that were never really ours. 8. Don't live someone else's dream. Some chains don't rattle. They don't come with judgment or harsh words. They come wrapped in love, in sacrifice, in phrases like, "I just want what's best for you. You're so talented, you could be anything." Or worse, "We gave up everything so you wouldn't have to." And sometimes, without meaning to, we carry those dreams that were handed to us, not chosen by us. They sound noble, they sound safe, but deep down they don't fit. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." Let that sink in. Sometimes the expectations holding you back weren't born from your own desires. They were born from someone else's regrets. A father who never pursued his art, so now you are expected to succeed in a real job. A mother who gave up her ambitions, so now you carry the weight of fulfilling them silently, dutifully, without complaint. And the world praises you for it. Look how respectful. Look how devoted. But inside you feel it. That slow erosion of your spirit, the quiet question whispering, "What about me?" The Stoics would tell you, you only get one life. One. And it cannot be lived well if you're dragging someone else's story behind you like a shadow. It takes courage to look at a dream, even a beautiful, well-meaning one, and say, "That's not mine." But that's where real clarity begins, when you stop confusing loyalty with sacrifice. When you realize that honoring your truth doesn't dishonor theirs, it simply means you're no longer willing to abandon yourself to be accepted. The truth, you can love your family and still not follow their script. You can respect their path and still carve out your own. And in the next strategy, we'll talk about what it means to truly own that path, how honesty with yourself isn't just important, it's the foundation of every meaningful decision you'll ever make. 9. Focus on what you can control. Here's one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. Tie your value to things you can't control. Most people do it without even noticing. They chase likes, followers, applause, and when it doesn't come, they spiral. Was it not good enough? Should I change who I am? And just like that, their worth becomes a reflection of someone else's reaction. But here's the truth that the Stoics repeated again and again. You can't control the algorithm. You can't control the crowd. You can't force anyone to understand your vision. You can only control what you show up and do day in and day out. That's where real power lives, not in chasing results, but in mastering the process. Aristotle said it best, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Think about that. It's not about hitting a home run every time. It's about stepping up to the plate again and again, even when no one's watching, even when no one claps, even when it feels like no one cares. Because you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it because it's who you are. When you focus on the work, on your values, your effort, your growth, you stop living in reaction mode. You stop being a puppet pulled by other people's opinions, and you start becoming someone solid, grounded, unshaken. Let them scroll past. Let them misunderstand. Let the numbers fluctuate, because those things were never yours to control in the first place. And in the next part, we'll talk about how to protect that mindset, how to filter which voices you actually let in, and which ones deserve nothing but silence. 10. Not every critic deserves a seat in your mind. Let's be honest, some opinions are just noise. But still, we let them in. A random comment, a sarcastic jab, a passive-aggressive remark from someone who's never built anything, suddenly hijacks our peace. Why? Why do we give so much weight to words spoken by people we wouldn't even ask for directions? Here's a Stoic rule worth remembering. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every critic has earned the right to shape your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, had a practice whenever he received criticism. He'd stop and ask himself, who is this person? What are their values? What kind of life do they live? And only then would he decide whether their judgment carried any real weight. Because the truth is, most criticism says more about them than it does about you. It comes from their insecurity, their frustration, their fear. Yet we absorb it like it's gospel. We replay it. We try to fix ourselves based on it. And we forget to ask the one question that changes everything. Is this someone I even respect? Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And that includes our sensitivity to judgment. If a comment cuts deep, maybe it's not because it's true, but because we haven't yet built the clarity to dismiss it. So here's your reminder. You don't need to let every passerby leave footprints in your mind. Be selective. Be intentional. Let feedback in, but only from people who've earned that right. The ones who live with integrity, the ones who call you higher, not smaller. And next, we'll zoom out even further, asking a question most people avoid. In the grand scheme of life, will any of this even matter? What happens when we stop chasing relevance and start chasing what lasts 11? Don't chase applause. Chase what's real. It's easy to get hooked on applause. The likes, the praise, the flattering words, they feel good. They give us a sense of worth, at least for a moment. But the truth is, applause fades. And if that's what you're living for, you'll always be stuck chasing something you can't hold on to. The Stoics had a different standard. They didn't measure success by recognition, they measured it by integrity, by effort, by alignment with your values, even when no one's watching. Because the real work, the work that matters, rarely comes with instant applause. It happens in silence, in the early mornings, in the long nights, in the uncomfortable moments where no one's cheering you on and you still show up anyway. Carl Jung once said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." In other words, real growth isn't polished, it's messy, it's raw. It requires you to face your own demons, not just post curated highlights for the world to see. So if you're going to do something, do it with honesty. Do it because it matters to you, not because it earns a quick reaction. There's nothing wrong with being appreciated, but needing it, that's dangerous. Because when applause becomes your fuel, silence becomes your enemy. And you'll start shaping your choices not around truth, but around attention. So build something that lasts. A habit, a character, a craft. Something rooted in who you are, not who you're trying to impress. In the final strategy, we'll explore exactly how to protect that inner compass by choosing carefully which voices you let in. And why wisdom means filtering not just noise from the outside, but also from within. 12. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do it anyway. Let's clear up a myth right now. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's movement through it. No one, not even the strongest among us, starts out fearless. They just learn how to act despite the fear, again and again, until that fear loses its grip. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't wait until they felt brave to take action. They trained themselves little by little to do the things that scared them. Speak the truth in a room full of silence. Do it. Post something real, even if it's imperfect. Do it. Ask the stupid question when everyone else is nodding like they understand. Do it. Why? Because that's how you build resilience, not by hiding from fear, but by walking into it eyes open. Carl Jung said it perfectly. What you resist not only persists, it grows. Avoid your fear and it expands in the dark corners of your mind. But face it, and suddenly it shrinks. Think about it like a workout. You don't lift heavy on day one. You build the muscle rep by rep, and it's the same with courage. Each time you do the thing that makes your palms sweat and your voice shake, your nervous system learns something powerful. I didn't die. I handled it. I can do this. Aristotle once said we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. That applies to bravery too. You become brave by doing brave things. You don't wait to feel ready. You act even when you're not. So start small. Speak up when it's hard. Show up as yourself even if that self is trembling. Because confidence isn't gifted. It's earned through repeated exposure to discomfort until what once scared you becomes your new normal. And when you stop waiting to be fearless and start practicing being courageous, that's when your life begins to shift. In a moment, we'll wrap up this entire journey and leave you with one final message: the kind of wisdom the Stoics live by, and the kind of freedom that lasts longer than applause. So here we are, 12 Stoic strategies. 12 quiet reminders that strength isn't about being loud, it's about being anchored. And courage, it's not about never shaking, it's about standing anyway. In a world constantly trying to mold you, judge you, distract you, the greatest rebellion might just be this: to live aligned with your own values, to speak truth even when your voice trembles, to move forward even when no one claps. Because the real victory isn't being accepted by everyone. It's being at peace with yourself. You don't need the whole world to understand you. You don't need the algorithm to reward you. You don't need to fit every expectation. You just need to stand in your truth. And when you do that, when you choose authenticity over approval, discipline over comfort, clarity over noise, something powerful happens. You become unshaken, not because life gets easier, but because you get steadier. So remember this: you don't need to be accepted by everyone. You only need to accept yourself. Live by your values. Practice courage. Hold your mind steady. That is the Stoic path. That is the kind of strength nothing can touch. Thanks for walking this journey with me. Until next time, stay grounded, stay honest, and above all, stay true.